You know, when we think of American history, we usually picture those heavy textbooks filled with the Revolutionary War, the Gold Rush, maybe the signing of the Declaration of Independence, right? But what if I told you that beneath those serious, well-worn chapters lies a whole other world? A world of bizarre, almost unbelievable events. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into three of the most mind-bending, untold stories of American history. True, literal glitches in the historical matrix that you definitely didn't learn about in school. Let's get right into it. I mean, seriously, we really have to ask ourselves, what if textbooks miss the absolute wildest parts of history? Well, we're going to explore exactly that. I'm taking you through three chronological tales that sound like pure Hollywood fiction, but I promise you they are 100% grounded in the historical record. We've got a terrifying natural upheaval, a totally weird military experiment out in the desert, and we're wrapping it all up with an incident of just sheer diplomatic absurdity. Okay, let's dive into our first story. Section 1, the backward flowing river, the earthquakes of 1811 to 1812. So, picture this. It's late 1811 near New Madrid, Missouri. This wasn't just a minor tremor. Suddenly, witnesses are caught in this terrifying sequence of sheer geological chaos. First off, there's violent ground movement, like intense literal lifting and dropping of the earth right beneath their feet. Then the shaking gets so severe that massive riverbanks just completely collapse, totally rewriting the map and forming entirely new lakes. And then comes the grand finale. Enormous waves shoot upstream, literally forcing the mighty Mississippi River to completely reverse direction and flow backwards. Can you even imagine seeing that? And just to give you a sense of the sheer massive scale of this thing, church bells rang as far away as Boston. Yeah, Boston. This wasn't just some localized disaster. This intraplate earthquake was so incredibly powerful that the seismic waves vibrated across the entire continent, ringing bells hundreds of miles away on the East Coast. It's just a wild reminder of the raw, unstoppable power hiding right beneath our feet. All right, let's shift gears from the power of nature to a truly bizarre human endeavor. Section 2, the U.S. Army Camels, a logistical experiment in the Southwest from 1856 to 1866. Now, back in the mid-19th century, the U.S. Army was facing a total logistical nightmare trying to move supplies through the scorching American Southwest. Mules and horses were just constantly collapsing from exhaustion and a lack of water. So let's see how this builds up. The idea actually didn't happen overnight. As early as 1836, Major Crosman proposed using camels. The idea finally gained serious political traction in 1853 when Jefferson Davis became Secretary of War. By 1855, Congress actually stepped up and approved funding for it. But, spoiler alert, by 1864, the government totally abandoned the project and auctioned the camels off. But let's pause on that funding for a second. $30,000. Congress handed over 30 grand back in 1855 for this wild experiment. To put that into perspective for us today, that is equivalent to over $1 million. The government genuinely believed that importing these exotic beasts from overseas was the ultimate fix for their desert transport nightmare. And man, they were willing to pay top dollar to make it happen. So why did this $1 million idea fall apart? Honestly, the camels themselves were fantastic, perfectly suited for the arid desert environment. But the human element, that's what caused the whole thing to unravel. First, the project's biggest champion, Jefferson Davis, left to lead the Confederacy. Then, obviously, the outbreak of the Civil War completely derailed military operations. And on top of all that, U.S. soldiers were used to a traditional horse and mule army. They simply lacked the skills and, frankly, the patience to manage these unfamiliar animals. It's a classic case of an experiment collapsing not because of the camels, but because of human conflict and inexperience. Moving on to our final glitch in the historical matrix, Section 3, the squabble over a pig, the San Juan Island border crisis of 1859. We're heading to San Juan Island, a beautiful place stuck in a really tense border ambiguity between the U.S. and Great Britain. And exactly 13 years after a treaty tried to divide the territory, one single farm animal shatters the peace. An American farmer, Lyman Cutlar, wakes up, looks in his garden, and sees a massive pig devouring his precious potatoes. Fed up, Cutlar shoots the trespassing pig. Well, turns out the pig belonged to Charles Griffin, an Irishman working for the British Hudson's Bay Company. Cutlar offers $10 in compensation. Griffin is furious and demands a whopping $100 for his prize animal. Cutlar refuses, the British authorities threaten to arrest him, and suddenly outraged American settlers are calling in the U.S. military for protection. over a pig. And this brilliantly illustrates just how ridiculously out of hand things got. It became an absolute masterclass in military overreaction. The U.S. Army escalated first, deploying 461 troops and 14 cannons under Captain George Pickett. The British Royal Navy? Oh, they countered with a massive force, 2,140 troops, 70 guns, and 5 fully armed warships. You literally have two global superpowers staring each other down, ready to ignite a massive war over a garden dispute.
Luckily for everyone, cooler heads eventually prevailed, and it's perfectly captured in this incredible quote from British Rear Admiral Robert L. Baines. When the local British governor literally ordered him to land troops and attack the American forces, Admiral Baines arrived, took one look at the sheer absurdity of the situation, and flat out refused. He declared, "I will not escalate a conflict into a war between two great nations over a squabble about a pig." Just an incredible comedic punchline to what could have been a terrifying international standoff.
The peaceful resolution to the pig war is honestly just as wild. When Washington and London heard the news, they were shocked. President Buchanan quickly sent General Winfield Scott to negotiate. They agreed to de-escalate, reducing forces to just token 100-man camps on opposite ends of the island. And get this, for the next 12 years, these American and British troops lived in total harmony. They hosted athletic contests, celebrated holidays together. Park rangers later noted that the biggest threat to peace wasn't gunfire, it was just the sheer abundance of alcohol at their parties. Finally, in 1872, German Emperor Wilhelm I acted as an arbitrator and officially awarded the island to the U.S. So the only casualty of this entire 13-year global crisis, just that one very unfortunate pig.
So, bringing this explainer to a close. Section 4. Why these stories matter. The glitches in the Matrix. At the end of the day, history is unpredictable, messy, and wonderfully human. When we just memorize textbook dates, we completely miss the weird stuff, the unpredictable natural disasters that are so powerful they force rivers backward, the absurd logistical tests with desert camels that fail because of bureaucratic shuffling, and, of course, the petty squabbles over a trespassing farm animal that nearly start global wars, only to end in a decade-long cross-border party. These untold anomalies remind us that history is never just a rigid, boring timeline. It's full of wild variables driven by nature and human emotion. Which leaves us with a pretty fun question to think about. What other bizarre historical events are waiting to be uncovered in your own backyard? We've only scratched the surface today, exploring just 3 incredible glitches in the historical record. But the truth is, the past is absolutely packed with these untold stories. Keep digging into those local archives, keep questioning the standard narratives in those textbooks, and you might just find your own glitch in the historical matrix. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and remember to always stay curious.